I talked about when I shaved my face and I still had long hair, how I was trying to examine something about my own femininity or my female nature or my seeing myself as a woman and how uncomfortable that made me. One of the other things that made me uncomfortable, I'm going to talk about, even if I mentioned it before, I'm going to talk about it more in depth right now, was the way I saw myself aging. And that certainly when I was a boy, one of the reasons I grew my beard out, was that I liked older men, but I didn't want older men who wanted me to suck my youth out. You know, there's so many words within gay culture that are vampiric to me. Oh, I want to drain, I want to take. It's very, I was very paranoid about the idea of lecherous old men wanting to suck my life force out. So the beard, I felt, was a filter. So people who were looking for the perfect youth, I wouldn't be modeling that. I would be modeling this type of maturity that I did not possess, because I was 19 when I first grew out my beard. And I think I cut my beard. I wore my beard for maybe a year when I first met bear culture, and then my straight friends wanted to see me shaved, so we had a shaving party and they shaved my whole body, and I remember being so embarrassed by my face because I thought I looked like I was 14. And a few years later, when I was 23 and I shaved my head and face and body again, I again felt like I looked 14. I was very embarrassed. And the last time I cut my hair, when I was 33, it's very similar. I shaved my head, I shaved my face, and I just felt like I was a kid, and I felt so embarrassed. And now, at 43, a lot of people over the last decade have mentioned how gray I have gotten. And one of the things I think is funny is that people always comment on how young my skin looks. And I'm like, that's because you think I'm 20 years older than I am. Maybe I have nice skin. Maybe it's both. I don't know. But I was uncomfortable, surprised, shocked, insecure that when I shaved my face, and especially, I had the long hair with the receding hairline, and I shaved my face, and I've gained like 20 pounds this year, like many people have, but I've never been this heavy in my life. And again, like seeing my face, especially right when I shaved my beard, the skin was so pale underneath the beard. The hair, which blended so well into the beard and gave me this wonderful mane kind of look, which is what I've always had, like, except when I was 14, I've always had long hair and a beard, and it like is a one-piece thing for me. It's not two separate things. And so I just felt so uncomfortable looking like 40. I remember like, oh my God, I'm older than I expected to be. And part of the reason I do this project, this celebrating my birthday for however many days I am this year, and certainly when I do the blogging about it, is it always makes me very uncomfortable when I talk to people in their 50s or 60s or 70s who say, oh, when I look in the mirror, I don't recognize myself. Inside, I still feel like I'm 18 and I see this old person and I don't know who that is. And I don't want to feel like that. I've always thought I don't want to ever say that. I don't want to ever be that out of touch with my aging process to think that I'm still 20 and am in fact 85. Or even 43. But again, I've always fetishized maturity, aging, aged men, elderly men. Oh my God, I worked on this guy a couple days ago who, I guess he was 65, but he had like this, nice head of hair and it was all white and just lines all over him and big sausage fingers. He wasn't fat, but he was tall and huge feet, huge hands. And I related to him a story that when I was sit in church when I was 7, I remember looking at this old man with white hair and wrinkles all over his face and wrinkles all over his hands. And I just wanted to touch him and sit with him and imagined him putting his arms around me. had nothing to do with sex, nothing to do with penises or penetration or ejaculation, just the idea of wanting to be close to that. And I've always related it as that's my idea of beauty. But I was watching even tonight. This happens constantly, so I'll just relate the most. Tonight I was watching Victor Victoria for the first time in my life. Never seen it before. My mother loved it and has mentioned many times it, and I have mentioned I haven't seen it, so tonight we decided to watch it. And I was like, oh, it's Pride Month. I'm so glad I watched Victor Victoria. And it is amazing. I understand why so many people have obsessed over it. The plot wasn't as interesting to me as just wanting to be there with those people in that world, and certainly even just to be with those actors, who could just be like on stage and be like, yeah, well, I'm gay. And if you have this string, you know, Alex Keras, who I knew from Webster, that was my thing. I just recently saw him last year in some movie. I forgot the name of it. It was a cheesy title. It was a nice title, but it had nothing to do with the movie. But it was a Jeff Bridges movie that took place. Lots of it took place in Mexico, where he was trying to find some girl. Anyway, Alex Keras was like this bad guy who was hunting them down, trying to kill him or something. I don't know. But I remember seeing him and being like, wow, that's that butler from Webster. It's the only thing I think I'd ever seen him in. It was so weird to see him as this tough guy. And then in Victor Victoria, I'm like, oh, there he is again, playing this tough guy, but a gay tough guy who gets to talk about like the reason. You know, it's very much the bear story. Like the reason that I got big and I acted like, you know, a man was so I wouldn't get called a faggot. I don't know. It was a very endearing movie, more than The Birdcage was for me. I guess it's easier to want to live in 1933 Paris than Miami. Depends what your psychology is. Anyway, point I'm making. There was a guy in it that just a background actor playing a trombone or a trumpet or something. He was playing something in the band, and he was kind of fat. And the way he like playing the horn, and he pushed his thing, and you see this big like fat around his chin. And I was like, I've always been attracted to that. Like this client I worked on yesterday who talked about how he's never been attractive because he's always been so fat. And I was just like, you are fat and you're totally sexy and fat. I wouldn't want that body though, myself. This man that I've seen, like the way he's aging, the way he's fat, I find so sexy. But, but I wouldn't necessarily want to live in that body. I was reading a story that a friend sent me from New York about what's been happening in Washington Square Park. It's all these parties, and it's unorthodox and uncontrolled and wild, and it's keeping everybody awake. Bad things about it. People getting stabbed. Drugs. Oh, insane. Chaos in New York City. Finally. Again. But, there was a picture. That's what it was. I was like, wait a minute, why'd you bring that up, man? There was a picture of a Hare Krishna festival that was happening that weekend. And the Hare Krishna festival had a trailer with a diorama setup on it. And I loved it because it was like men. I don't know what the word is for it. Like a woman would wear a sari. A man wears like a kurta and pajama bottoms. But what is it called when men wear the little skirt things that cover their legs, but then their chests are exposed? It's all these men from baby age to elderly old man age with no shirt on, but they're mannequins, right? So they're mannequins that have specifically been created for this. The costumes that they're wearing covering their lower half that are in silk are in the Rainbow Pride, or it might not have been making a reference to Gay Pride Month. I don't know, but it was in the rainbow colors, and I was totally like, what? But I loved that when it got, you know, it had like the fit young man, and then it got to middle age, and the middle-aged guy was fat. And then the next few middle-aged guys were fat, and then the old man was still fat, but withered and a long beard. And I was like, I love that in India, they're like, you're supposed to get fat. And I remember there was some French guy, I believe, Spanish. There was a Spanish guy that I met in Barcelona or maybe Madrid. Anyway, he said something to me in Spanish. I still don't remember the phrase exactly. But I said, what does that mean? And he said, an old man without a belly is like the star without skies. The sky without stars. An old man without a belly is like the sky without stars. And he said it's just like some cliche there, that there's this, you know, you're supposed to get to a stage in your life where you get fat. It means that you're comfortable and you have success. In the Tumblr porn days, if any of you were aware of that, there was a Tumblr guy who, I mean, it was amazing to me. There was a type of Tumblr, and in Twitter now, there's still these that kind of annoy me, but also attract me, which annoys me, where they're just people who take other people's content and repost it to present a meme, an idea of what's sexy. But I'm one of those people that creates content and puts it there for people to be attracted to. So I'm like working with my image, and I'll get to that in a little bit. I'm playing with my image, attached to my image, creating with my image of my image. And so it annoys me when people take my images, my videos, because this also happened today where somebody had said, hey, is this you? And it's a video I had posted on my Xtube years ago, and somebody had reposted it somewhere else, Piggy Slave or something. And I'm like, I don't know, it's not my energy, but okay, it is me fisting a guy in the woods, you know. Hi, Mom. She doesn't watch this, don't worry. But maybe my niece and nephew will someday. Anyway, there were these two Twitter accounts that were just people taking other people's images or finding images on the net. But the names that they used, their Tumblr handles, were always kind of like, they turned me on and blew my mind in the reference they made. One of them was Dangerously Ripe Fruit. It was, you know, fat old men. And another one was called The Middle-Age Spread. And I was thinking of that tonight while watching Victor Victoria, seeing this fat guy blowing the trumpet or whatever he was blowing, trombone, I don't remember, and me thinking of my own relationship with looking kind of fat and saggy, which I've always been attracted to in other people, the wrinkles and the fatness and the corpulence, you know. There's a guy who I used to have sex with in New York all the time who's just this like big fat dude in this. And I have a picture, the picture that I've chosen for his contact thing is he's laughing and smiling and his big fat neck and the wrinkles under his chin. I just think it's so cute. I mean, I had a guy I used to have sex with in New York. I get so distracted, forgive me. A guy I used to have sex with in New York that I remember thinking he was so fucking sexy and grotesque. Like Harlequin grotesque, like this huge, fat, furry belly, but perfectly round, and this big bulbous nose. He was Jewish something, and it's a big fat dick and balls, and it's just big, hairy. Like, I remember once showing my brother a picture of a man that I was having a relationship with at the time. Troublesome, but he said, I think that's the ugliest man I've ever seen. And I said, well, I guess I'm very attracted to ugly men. And I've thought about that ever since then. My brother calling one of my lovers ugly and me being like, I guess I like ugly men. You know, and especially in the association of people growing up, you know, having to come out of multiple closets, as most of us do, of, you know, oh, I'm gay. And people are like, oh, you're gay. Oh, let's have sex. I'm a 17-year-old and I'm really hot and sexy. And I'm like, you're not my thing. And even in my 20s, the beautiful 20-year-olds with the six-pack abs, and I would try and I couldn't get a hard on. It was like me trying to have sex with a woman. It just, but give me a fat old man, you know, rock hard in a second. That what turns me on is ugly to mainstream ideas of beauty, and it's my sense of beauty is what I really find beautiful in other people. And I was talking to one of my clients yesterday who was a Virgo, actually the same guy who thought he was unattractive and fat, he had a big belly and such a big cock. He didn't think so, but he didn't appreciate it. Couldn't see it underneath his fat belly. Was I have a Virgo rising, you know, and Virgos want to be perfect and they want to be the virgin. And I think that, you know, it's something that when I've thought about my femininity, you know, thinking about my Virgo rising, like the Virgo part of the body is the belly, and it's this fecundity and femininity thing. And I've always thought like that I can carry that type of elegance and gracefulness with gratitude and pride, maybe. I'm like, oh, I can move with gracefulness. You know, I was never really a dancer per se, but I wanted to be able to move elegantly and gracefully and yoga and qigong have always had that. Massage has had that. But when I think, a lot of people have called me a narcissist because I have thousands of photos of myself. And I'm like, well, other people took those photos. At this point in my life, I've been taking most of my photos for the last whatever years. I don't jack off to my own photos. I'm not that kind of narcissist. I don't have pictures of myself around, but it's weird to see myself engaging in the middle age spread. And again, to fetishize on that for a moment, there's a closeted married dude that I've had sex with on and off for years in New York, whose hands are like twice the size of mine. And he's fat, you know, but not in that gigantic round bellied way. He has like hips, you can't see, hips like this wide. Like his body is just this huge wide thing. So he has a bit of a belly, right? But like, I'm sure if he was at 250 pounds, he wouldn't have a huge belly. I mean, he's taller than me anyway, so he's probably 300 pounds when he was really fat. I don't know. Like right now, he's lost a lot of weight and he just sent me a picture of himself. And I was like, oh, you look so skinny. But I know about fat guys. They get fat again every time they lose weight. Sorry, fat guys. But a guy I had sex with a couple days ago, who I was just like, oh my God, his body was so fucking hot because he had these huge broad shoulders, huge barrel chest, and just incredibly wide hips. The guy I spent time, some of this winter with in Florida. That was one of the things that was so beautiful about it to me, was that his hips were just so wide, and obviously he had a fat belly, but it wasn't fat in a round, bulging way. It was just that he was so broad. I'm super attracted to that. And I also just love how big, broad bodies make me feel smaller. And many times throughout my life, especially when I was younger and couldn't put on weight to fucking save my life, I was so skinny, I would imagine being fat. I would walk with heavy boots on. I remember I had some really heavy steel-toed boots, and I would walk and like try to imagine myself being like 250 pounds and feel what that body weight felt like. And I had a little exchange today with a guy that I gave massage to years ago. I mean, the first time I gave him a massage, I just thought he was the hottest fucking thing ever. Oh my God, he was so fat and furry, and his face was adorable, and he was so emotionally sweet and sensitive. And then I later found out that he was incredibly sensitive, like in a Scorpio way, and he hates his body. It's always made me so sad when the guys I find beautiful hate their bodies. It's almost a personal affront, because I'm like, wait a minute, I find you beautiful. Stop hating yourself. Don't hate yourself. You're hurting yourself in front of me, and I think you're beautiful. So don't say mean things about you. But you know, you can't undo someone's internal self-loathing processes. That's their work to do. And the best you can do is tell someone you love them, but it doesn't stop them hating themselves. But I had a little exchange with him, and just yesterday or today, and he said, no, I'm still not comfortable with my body. I'm too fat and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh. And I understand, as I have gotten fatter, I can't stretch the same way I used to. I certainly move differently. It's weird. It's weird when your body changes shape, and you were one thing and then you're another. And I've certainly talked with lots of fat guys who get skinny for whatever reason, being it surgery or not taking their medication or weird diet fads, you know, and just that wonderful freedom of being skinny. I guess some people actually work out and have a, you know, life-changing thing, but, you know, to change our bodies is quite fascinating. But regardless of what we try to do to change our bodies change anyway. And as I saw with my friend Leo, you know, he was skinny his youth. He was sickly skinny. And I would say kind of in a way I was a sickly skinny teenager for at least quite a few years. And I guess when he moved out of New York and moved to San Francisco, and it just became pleasure and beauty, and everything started rolling for him, and his life manifesting in the way he wanted it to be, he became fat. And I know that when I first met him, he had just done an Atkins diet and lost a lot of weight, and he was proud of himself for that. But our friendship was for 15 years, and about 10 years into that relationship, he was fatter than he'd ever been. And it was kind of funny for me because when I met him, he had just lost a lot of weight. So I couldn't compare him to like you. Oh, I liked it when you were fatter. You know, he still had a big, broad, stocky body, big hands and big chest, which I love, you know. But he got cancer. It started withering away. It started wasting. And he said to me that he had quite liked being fat. That he was like, you know, I lost weight because it was like hard on my knees and it was hard on my back. But when I got fat again, I just really liked being fat. I liked people liking me being fat. I loved to drink alcohol. I loved to eat food. I liked being fat. I liked the feeling of being fat. I liked the way I looked. And I'm quite sad that I'm losing that, you know, and he's just withering away. The last few years of his life, he looked like William Burroughs. He got so skinny, he was like a totally different person. And, you know, and that's a different thing too, that like, we may not like being fat. I've met so many fat people who don't want to be fat. And then there's the gainer thing of fat people who give up trying to not be fat, and then they get into making themselves fatter and fatter. And one of the things I wanted to tell in telling this story was I remember when I first started traveling a few years, I don't think I was 20 yet, I might have been 20. One of my best friends for a couple years was a boy here in Indiana who we stopped being friends pretty early in our teenage years. I think before puberty, we stopped being friends. But we were really good friends for a few years. And we weren't in close contact through our high school years, though we would occasionally talk amiably. I was pretty crazy, and I understand that. I was very angry. But I saw him somewhere either in our late teenage years or our early 20s. It must have been our early 20s because he was already as a lawyer in Chicago. I saw him in Chicago. He was a lawyer in Chicago. He was the first person from my life that talked to me, that in talking to me said, wow, you should write a book about your life. A lot of people would want to read it. And I was in my early 20s and I was shocked. But the reason I'm bringing him up was having not seen him for a few years and knowing him from when he was like 10, I was shocked when I saw him in Chicago because he'd gotten, it was like he was 40 already. His face had done that thing that's gotten wider and puffier, which he wasn't in high school. I don't know how much that relates to alcohol drinking. I assume it has a lot to do with alcohol drinking. And I associate it a lot with inflammation when people talk about health food and dietary and stuff. There's a lot of food that causes inflammation, and a lot of people don't know that it has anything to do with their lifestyle. They just think it's aging or life, and it's actually something you can choose not to do to yourself by eating different foods. That's one of the reasons the gluten-free thing is such a big deal right now, because it causes inflammation in people, and some people who have the ability to make that choice, they don't want to be inflamed like that, so they don't eat things that inflame them. I don't know what it was with him, and I didn't talk with him about it, but I just remember being so shocked that even in his early 20s, he had become an old man, a mature man. And I was like, wow, I guess like when you slide into your life, that I don't know, everybody has their own life story, but from the outside of a life, it's really easy to look at someone else's life and be like, God, just yesterday they were a teenager and now they're an old man already. And that's what I felt like when I saw him, that I'm like, his life is going to be like this. It's on a track. He is married. He's going to have kids. He's working the job. He's going to get promoted. He's going to get promoted. He's going to get a house and a bigger house and a house in the country. His kids are going to move away to college, and he's going to play golf. Like his life is just prescribed, and he's already 50 years old in his 20s, in his early 20s. He's already 60 years old in his early 20s. He's going to be like this. And I guess that's what I saw when I shaved my beard off. I'm like, oh, I finally stepped into the mature version of myself. And I haven't stepped on a scale. I've only stepped on a scale once this year, as far as I know. I mean, maybe I did it at doctor's offices, but I didn't pay attention to the numbers. But I remember when I stepped on the scale in New York and I was 196 or 97 pounds. And I was like, fuck, look at that. Wow. Never been that heavy before. and just feeling the way my belly is and how I move. And there are a lot of my lovers and friends over the years are like, oh my God, I love your belly, or I like how you look mature and masculine, all this shit. But I'm talking about this because this project has a lot to do with aging and the awareness of aging, and the insecurity of me trying to manifest myself as female was a surprise to me. Like, just like, oh, I can't just do this with grace. It makes me uncomfortable. Fuck. Guess that's something I can work on or not. I don't know. And I'm surprised again with this thing of the middle-age spread. It's funny, I noticed some person who I don't know very well, who's one of my Facebook followers, commented in a normal, arrogant way, and I don't mean any insult towards him, but everybody's got an arrogance. They assume they know what is happening. You know, I can assume that I know what's going on in your life. Like I just said about this friend, that his whole life is spelled out. That's, you know, the actuality of his life is much more complicated. But so often we look at somebody and we're like, oh, I know why you did what you did. I know what you're doing. When in fact, we're projecting shit on them that has nothing to do with their own intentions. And this guy was like, I think it's so sad you shaved your hair off because you're embarrassed about going bald. And I was like, well, that's not why I did it. You know, I didn't even bother responding to him because I was like, I don't even really care about having that conversation. I haven't responded to most of the people who have contacted me on any way. That's unfortunately, I've gotten to that point in my life where I just don't respond to most people. I'm sorry. Keep trying if you really want to talk, but call me. I don't know. Get me on the phone. FaceTime me. I ignore most of your Skype calls anyway, but you just want to jerk off with me. You don't want to talk to me, do you? Anyway, I thought that was funny that he responded. I was like, yeah, that's not at all. One of the reasons I first grew my hair out when I was 14 was I assumed I would be bald as a mature man. So I wanted to have long hair while I could. And every time I grow it back, I'm like, oh, I can still have long hair. You know, I might not grow it back this time. I probably will because I always have, but who knows? But, you know, one of my massage clients yesterday rubbed my head and he's like, wow, you've got such a good head of hair. And even though I do have some male pattern baldness here, and certainly these receding hairlines, I can still grow long hair, obviously. I just had it. Although I do remember, though, I thought the last time that I shaved my hair off that there was like a little separation. There's a little thinness here, but I had imagined it was much more separate the last time I shaved my hair off. So I wonder if my hair pattern has changed. I don't know, because now I've just got this, like, I don't know what this is called. It's not even a widow's peak. It's, I don't know what it is. Some kind of tonsure. It's also that daddy and boy thing. You know, I don't know how to step in. I haven't lived my life in such a way that I have enough money to like float my whole life. My whole life floats on other things. A lot of people have always assumed that my parents have supported me, or I've had some kind of trust fund or something. And the joke that I always made when I was younger and traveling was like, well, I trust the world will take care of me, and it does, but I certainly don't have a bank account that somebody's putting money into all the time. And that's still true, you know. Like staying at my parents right now, I'm not paying rent. It's nice. And my dad did pay me once for me doing a lot of work last year. He paid me once. It was very nice. And in all the years that I've traveled, my father gave me money once when I was doing, only once that I remember, that I was doing the training in Thailand, and I created this fundraiser thing on Facebook, and he gave me money for that. And I was really like, wow, thanks, Dad. Besides that, my parents had given me money for Christmas and birthdays, like $100. Which is nice, and I certainly appreciate it. But it's not like they're giving me $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 a year to live on. You know, I have a friend when his parents died. He had no idea that his parents had millions of dollars, or that their land was worth millions of dollars, whatever their estate. He had no idea. And they both died within like a year or two of each other. And his brother was supposed to inherit some of the money with him, but his brother died right around that time. And so he had some accountant deal with everything. And when it all came down to it, he was like, holy shit, I have millions of dollars now and I don't know what to do with that. But my accountant advised that I put it in a trust fund and meter it out to myself so I don't waste it all. And so now he gets $50,000 a year from his parents till he dies. Who would have thought? And a lot of people have always asked me, well, what are you going to do when you want to retire? And I'm like, how do you retire from the life I have? I don't even know what that means. You know, I literally go like, I don't know, I can kind of do whatever I want, kind of. I mean, I've always felt obliged to things in life, but for the most part, how do you retire from a life like mine? I don't really know. But I've always assumed that I would end up living at some ashram or feed myself to some wolves, or somebody would leave me a lot of money, because I have no idea how I would be a dad. I guess that's the point I'm making. A sugar dad, a daddy, even people who aren't sugar daddies, just in so many of the relationships I've had with older men, that they've been like, no, I'll get dinner, don't worry about it. Or, you know, I certainly haven't had people like buying me hoverboards or Mercedes or anything, but I've certainly had a lot of people take me to dinner. I don't take people to dinner all that much, and I'm certainly not attracted to 20-year-olds, but when people call me daddy, which I get a lot now, I'm like, well, you know, when am I going to feel financially secure enough to want to take younger men to dinner? I don't want to have sex with them, so that's tricky because, like, I wouldn't mind spending time with certain younger men, and I tried that when I lived in New York, but they would always be kind of put off that I didn't want to have sex with them, and I get it. I want to have sex with older men. But I don't want to have sex with younger men yet, so. The middle age spread, maturity, what's it look like to get older? This is what 40 looks like. I love how so many of the older men that I love now are like 50 or 60 or 70, and they're like, I don't know, I don't feel old. And I know that, like, when I was in my teenage years, I thought 30 was old. I thought 40 was old. I thought 50 was old. And I love that one of my best friends in New York, 75 this year, and I've known him since his 50-something, I think he was 55 or something when I met him. I guess I've known him about 20 years. That most of our friendship, I've always been really grateful because he's not an old man. My friend that I was talking about earlier, who died of cancer and withered away, he died at 68. And he became so old while he was dying. I mean, try to remain, graceful when you're on fucking painkillers and you're in total agony and withering away, and the doctor says you have 3 months to live, and you're like waiting for death for 5 years. Of course, you're gonna age a lot. But he was such an old man. He died at 68. And my other lover at the time, Kos, was like 70 when I met him and died at 75. And he was such an old man. He was so crotchety and mean and in pain and unhealthy. And he didn't fucking care until they told him he was going to die, and then he freaked out. Too late, babe, you're dead. And that guy I tried to take care of or help last year, who was 85, just turned 85 this summer. But he's 84, and he just can't deal with the fact that he's not 40 anymore. I was so disappointing because I remember that when my friends died and I talked with them, he said, I think people die the way that they lived. And I didn't know him very well, but I just thought he was this, very spiritual, together, grounded, centered, spiritual man with discipline. Turns out that was an act. And his actual period of dying is he's totally uncomfortable. And it's so funny. When I did acid as a kid, I would go to, music parties. Everybody would be trying to have fun, and I'd be like, how the fuck do I die? How do I let go of my body? Oh my God. I've always had this morbid thanatotic ideation. And it will totally shock me if I get close to death and all of a sudden it's like, I can't believe I look this old. I just feel like I'm 18 inside. I can't die. Not yet. I have so much more to do. I don't want to be like that. And I've tried so much. In my psychedelic research and my meditation retreats and all my blogging and blathering. But life is an experience. It's not something you think about. It's not something you talk about. It's something you experience. And I don't know, I just find it shocking. Fascinating, right? It's fascinating. Come to the cabaret, old chum. I know that's not Victor Victoria. I don't remember any of the songs. Oh, La Jazz Hot. I don't care. It wasn't about the music, but fuck, her voice is amazing, right? Her voice is amazing. Was Robert Preston really gay? I bet. He played an old queen so well. And I love thinking of Alice Carras as gay. He did a good turn for us. What is it? You want it all, but you can't have it. It's in your face, but you can't grab it. What is it? We will know when it is our time. But right now, we're this age. Right now, we look like this. Who knows about tomorrow? All right, enough of this. I'm going to do my Italian and go to sleep.